Hi, my name is Melissa. I am a Lensbaby ambassador and educator, and I am a fine art photographer that works in a variety of genres. And one of my favorite genres to work in is macro photography. So today I am very excited to create this video for you that is showing you and explaining to you a new bundle that Lensbaby has put together that focuses on macro photography. So what I am going to be doing is showing you what is in the bundle and showing you how to use each item from the bundle, and then I am going to be giving you some behind the scenes as I work with some subjects to create some beautiful images with these wonderful optics that Lensbaby has sent me to play with. Okay, so the bundle that Lensbaby has sent me is called the Soft Focus Optic Swap Macro Kit. And it arrived in this wonderful case, which I really like. It's a nice hard case. It has the Lensbaby logo on it, and it has a handle so that you can use this for traveling or for storing your items in your home. And I'm going to go ahead and get it opened up for you and show you everything that is inside. Okay, so it's a very nice case. It has this nice foam top to protect all your gear. And let's see, so inside is a Lensbaby lens cloth, always very useful. The Composer Pro 2 with the Sweet 50 optic inserted in it. The Soft Focus 2 optic in a holder to protect it when it's not in use. A case for creative aperture discs, and I will be going over what these are in a little bit. And also a case with macro filters, and I will also be going over those as well. So to start with, I want to talk to you about the Optic Swap system. This is a system that is unique to Lensbaby, and I want to talk to you about what makes it so special. So Lensbaby has created this system that allows you to put a base or housing onto your camera, and then allows you to switch in and out different optics, and each optic has a different creative effect, and some of them are also have different focal lengths. So what Lensbaby sent me was the Sweet 50 optic and the Soft Focus 2 optic. The Optic Swap system is made up of a rather large family of optics with creative effects. But today I will only be talking to you about these two optics and what is special to them. So to start with, I'm going to just explain to you a little bit about this piece, which is the Composer Pro 2. This is the base or the housing. It attaches to your camera. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. So just like attaching a lens, you look for the little red dot on your composer and you match it up to the little red dot on your camera and you lock it in. So there it is. So the other pieces of about the composer, the other parts about the composer that you need to know about are these two silver metal rings right here, here, and here. This first metal ring, and if I can show you this right here, there's a little lock icon with an arrow, and that helps you to lock the composer. One of the really interesting and exciting things about this composer is that it moves around. So it goes around in a full 360, it goes up, it goes down, side to side, and that allows you to change your area of focus in your image. And also it brings in more blur and interesting bokeh creative effects depending on which optic you're using and what aperture you're at and all kinds of things. So that's very exciting. You can also lock it, as I showed you, and keep it in one place. So you can pick wherever you want to lock it. If you want to lock it to the side, you can lock it. Or if you want to lock it in the center, let's see, you can lock it that way. Lensbaby does recommend that when you are using the Soft Focus 2 optic, that you keep your composer straight on. They have found that it works better for that particular optic, but I do always tell photographers to go ahead and experiment. You know, there really is no right or wrong. Lensbaby has just found that sometimes there's more success with that optic when you are straight on, but it is certainly your choice to move the composer around while you are using this soft focus optic if you choose. So the other important part of the Composer Pro 2 is this focusing ring right here. So that is the ring that is closest to your optic, and you can see as I'm turning it, the optic is moving in and out, and that is how it focuses. All of Lensbaby's lenses and optics are manual focus, so you will be doing the focusing yourself. The camera does not do it for you when you use these lenses and optics. Okay, so that is the composer. Another important component about the composer is that when you were to purchase this kit, you would specify what mount your camera is. So each composer comes for a particular mount. So that's one of the things that makes this optic swap system so interesting and easy to use, because it allows you to just have one housing, the Composer Pro, and to purchase from a large family of creative optics. So the optics are very easy to place into the composer and to remove from the composer, and it's very simple to do that. So I already have the Sweet 50 in here, so I'm going to show you first how to remove it. You are just going to turn your aperture ring. The aperture ring is on the optic itself, and you're going to turn it all the way to the highest aperture, which on this particular optic is 22, and when you do that, the optic pops right out. Then to place an optic in, you are going to rotate your aperture ring all the way down to the lowest aperture, and you can see right here it's 2.5. There's a little dot and it's lining up with this line here. And then I'm going to place it in and line it up with that open circle and then rotate it to the closed circle. Make sure I'm going in the right direction. Yes, and there we go. So now we are locked in. So the feature that makes the Sweet 50 unique, its creative effect, is that it has a sweet spot of focus, a sharp, sweet spot of focus. And then from that sweet spot, a beautiful, gentle, dreamy blur radiates out. And I'm going to go ahead and move my aperture ring so you can, let's see, I think I have it wide open right now. Let's see, let's close it down and open it back up. So at its most open, f2.5, you're going to actually have the least amount in focus and more blur. And as you start to close your aperture down, you start to have more area of the image in focus and less of that dreamy blur. So that's what happens with the Sweet 50. And it comes with its own lens cap. So I'm going to pop this out now and talk to you about the Soft Focus 2. So let me get that ready. So again, in this kit, the Soft Focus 2 comes in this little plastic holder, which is very nice to keep your optic safe when it is not in your composer. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Sweet 50 in here while I'm not using it. So just like with the Sweet 50 and with all the optics, you're going to turn the aperture ring to the most open aperture, and you're going to line it up with the open circle and turn it to the closed circle. And now we have the Soft Focus 2 optic in the composer. The Soft Focus 2 is similar to the Sweet 50 in that they both are 50 millimeter focal length, and they are both go from f2.5 to f22. But there are several reasons why this optic is quite different from the Sweet 50. The Soft Focus 2 effect is a soft, gentle, dreamy glow. And when you're at the most open apertures, so from the f2.5 all the way up to f4 and even a little bit into f5.6, you will see a glow in your image, and it's very dreamy and adds a lot of magic and softness to an image. And I will show you what that looks like when I rotate the aperture ring. Now I'm closing it down and opening it back up again. So the other feature of the Soft Focus 2 that makes it unique from the Sweet 50 and from the other optics in the Optic Swap family is that if you, let me show you this. If you look real closely, you can see some little silver pieces in here. Those are magnets, and they allow you to use the creative aperture discs. So let me show you those. So here's the creative aperture disc holder that I showed you at the beginning, and this comes with 4 aperture discs. 3 of them have open circles, and they go from small to medium to large, and the 4th one has a starburst. So these can be placed in your Soft Focus optic too, and they don't go into the other optics. These are specific for the Soft Focus optic too, because of that magnetic system that I just mentioned. So I'm going to go ahead and put the small circles in. I really like this disc a lot. I tend to use the small holes and the starburst most often in my work. So let me go ahead and pop this in. You can see what it looks like once it's in. So there it is. So what these little aperture discs do is that they play with whatever available light you have coming in to your frame, and the effect that you have will vary depending on how much light you have coming in, the quality of your light, if you have anything else, like anything reflective in your image, water droplets, things like that. These aperture discs will play with all of those features, and they will add little tiny flares and texture into your image, especially in the bokeh areas. So they're very fun to use, and can really help you create unique images that are specific just to you. So the way that you remove these little aperture discs is that your little holder here, so it arrived looking like this. You take this little cap off the end, and there's a little handy dandy magnet here. And this makes it very simple to get your aperture discs out. I'm going to go ahead and show you. It just goes right in and it comes right out. So quick and easy, just like that. So one of the other things that I really like about this Soft Focus 2 optic is that, as I mentioned, it has this beautiful, gentle, dreamy, soft glow to it when it's at the more open apertures. But something that makes this unique is that there is a lot of underlying sharpness under that glow. And when you take your images into post-processing, you can add clarity and contrast, and you can in texture, and you can start to bring up into your image those areas of sharpness that are lying underneath the glow. So there are really so many creative possibilities with this particular optic. So far I've told you all about these optics and what they do and what makes them special and what their creative effects are. And I have not yet told you how you can use these optics for macro photography. And this is a macro kit, so now I'm going to get into the really good stuff here. So these are 50 millimeter optics. So they're great optics for everyday photography. Really, you know, anything that you would do with 50 millimeters, you can do with these. Street photography, portraits, documentary photography, and I want to now show you how you can use these also for macro photography. So Lensbaby has included in this kit this wonderful, cute little Lensbaby logoed package, and in here are the macro filters. And I really love their packaging. This little case opens right up. It has these little pockets in it, and each pocket contains one of the 3 macro filters. Each macro filter is a different magnification. They come in +1, +2, and +4. They can be used individually or stacked. I often stack mine. In fact, my standard procedure for when I use these for macro is that I tend to stack all 3 of them. And that's how I start. And then as I'm working, then I will remove 1 or 2 if I feel like I have too much magnification. So you can stack these in any order. I tend to stack mine with +4 in the bottom, then +2, and then +1, and then I can gradually remove them if I need more space or I want less macro, less magnification. I'm going to show you how I put this on my optic. So I did also want to show you that you can use these aperture discs with the macro filters. So that's really cool as well. I'm going to pop in this little small circled one in here into the soft focus 2. And then I am going to twist on these macro filters. I did want to tell you before I do that, that these macro filters are for 46 thread optics and lenses. So they work on almost all of Lensbaby's 46 thread optics. They do not work with the Edge 35. I did want to point that out. I believe that they work with all of the other 46 thread optics. They also work with the Soul 45 and the Trio 28, which are also 46 threads. So that's a really nice feature about these macro filters as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on to my soft focus 2 optic, and they just screw right on really easily, just like that. And of course, they work with this Sweet 50 also. So what happens once you put these macro filters onto your optic is that your optic now has macro capabilities. So I love this kit because it's so versatile. I can take it out for anything that I'm going to be photographing, and I can have these macro filters with me to go from regular photography to macro photography at a moment's notice. And I love the little aperture discs, which add a little creative flair and interest when using the soft focus 2. So there are so many creative possibilities in this kit. And that's all I want to talk about right now. Now I want to start to show you how I use this kit with my own work. So I did want to mention that my original intention for showing you how I use these optics and macro filters in my work was to take you out into my garden, which is really beautiful at this time of the year. It's the heart of the summer, and I have a lot of flowers in bloom. Unfortunately, sometimes life gets in the way, and I did break my ankle, so I am confined to indoors and to chairs for the most part for doing all of my work right now. So I will be taking you into my studio, which is my dining room, and that's where I do all my indoor macro. And I think it will still be a great way for me to show you how to use these optics because they are really so versatile that you can use them for indoors and outdoors alike. And I'm excited to show you what I'm making. Okay, so here we are in my dining room, and this is where I do most of my indoor macro work. And I love this room for the beautiful light that I get in the morning. And unfortunately, the light does not last very long in here. So I am going to get down to work quickly to show you how I work in this space. But before I start, I did want to talk to you a little bit about my creative process with macro photography and also just my creative thoughts on using Lensbaby gear. And I wanted to say right at the outset that it's really important to always know that your work is not about the gear. It is really about what is happening here and what's happening here. How you see and how you think and how you feel when you're creating is what is most important, and the gear is what helps you get there. But it is not really the gear that is creating your work, it is you that is creating your work. And I think it's always important that we remind ourselves of that. I particularly choose to use Lensbaby much of the time in my work because using Lensbaby gear does give me the tools that I need to create my vision. But It does not come easy. And I would like to say that there is a learning curve with all of Lensbaby gear. And I don't want you to shy away from that learning curve. For me, the journey of photography is just as important, if not even more important than, the final images. So when I am creating macro in particular, I work mainly with flowers. Flowers make me really happy. And so I love to work with flowers. It is a therapeutic, artistic, and photographic process for me. And I love to use Lensbaby because when I am creating my macro images, I am creating them with the purpose of evoking certain mood or a feeling. So it's not just about the flower, but it's about how the flower makes me feel. And that's what I want to show to the world. So when I am going out with my camera and my Lensbaby Optic or lens or my Omni wands, I'm going out, and in the back of my mind, as I see different flowers, they remind me of things. So pansies remind me of my mother because she loves pansies. She loves the little faces that are on pansies and always talks about how each pansy has its own little face. So, and I love peonies because they remind me of when my daughters were little and had their dance recitals. Their dance recitals always coincided with the times that my peonies were in bloom in the yard. So when I'm creating images with these flowers, lots of memories come back, and so it makes the experience of working with them even more pleasant and interesting. And I really like those feelings and thoughts and emotions and moods to come out in my work. And Lensbaby gear has given me the ability to do that. So with that being said, I do want to remind you to practice with your new Lensbaby gear. And when I say practice, I mean really put yourself into it. I always encourage people when they are starting with Lensbaby, whether it's their first Lensbaby Optic or lens or their fifth. I don't even care how many Lensbabies you have worked with. Give yourself at least 2 weeks of only working with that one optic, and even longer, because there's so much that you can do with Lensbaby. There are just so many creative options, and it can take time to work through all the different opportunities that you have, and also find a way that the optics and the lenses and the Omni wands work best with your unique style and voice. So keep practicing. So today, while I'm working inside, I had my husband cut me a few flowers from the garden, and as I have been thinking about the particular flowers he cut for me, I have been giving thought as to what kind of mood or feeling I want to get from the images that I create with these flowers. So the first one I'm going to work with is this little yellow flower that came off some bushes that are in front of our screen porch. And I love these little flowers because they are the first thing that I see in the morning in the summer, and they bloom all summer, and they're so cheerful, and they attract a lot of pollinators. And so for these flowers, I'm hoping to create images that show their vitality, and basically like how attractive they are to nature. So I decided that I was going to use my soft focused 2 for these flowers right here and for this first set of images that I'm going to be working with. So just as a reminder, we're working with the Soft Focus Optic Swap Macro Kit. I have my Composer Pro 2 on my camera. This first ring here is the locking ring to lock your composer into place if you want it locked. And the second ring is your focus ring. And you can see it moving the optic in and out. And the apertures are here on your optic. And I am going to lock in my composer so that I have it straight on. And as I mentioned earlier, Lensbaby does recommend with the Soft Focus Optic, the Soft Focus 2, that you keep your composer straight for best results. However, again, I really encourage you as the artist to unlock your composer and move your composer around while you are learning how to use the soft focus, just to see what you like best. So I've done it both ways, and I do prefer to use my soft focus 2 with the composer straight, as Lensbaby has recommended. I have also chosen to add in the aperture disc that has the starburst on it. And as you may remember, this kit does come with 4 aperture discs, 3 with little circles and 1 with this starburst. I decided to use this starburst because, as I was saying, I want to show the vitality of this particular flower and how it is attractive in nature to all of the nature around it, such as the pollinators. So I'm hoping that as I work with this flower that I'm going to get some really interesting little flares and textures in my image from using this aperture disc. But before we do that, we need to add our macro filters to the soft focus 2. So I have my macro filters here, and the way that I work is I typically start by stacking all 3 of the macro filters, and I stack it with the +4 on the bottom, and then I stack +2 on top, and then +1. And the reason why I do it that way is so then I can just take off the magnification gradually if I want less magnification in my image. So, and what I typically do is I will start at a more open aperture, and then I keep kind of closing down as I go until I find what I'm looking for, the effect that I want. So I'll be starting at the 2.5 and going to 2.8, 4, and then probably up to 5.6. That's probably as high as I'll go for this, since I do want to keep distraction out of the background. I don't use any special backgrounds when I'm working. I really just use my space and my available light. So you will notice as I go to photograph this flower that I'm going to be moving the focus ring. I'm also going to be moving my body forward and backward. That also helps me find the focus that I want for my image. So I do a little bit of both, moving the focus ring and moving myself back and forth until I get into focus what I want. I get the glow that I want. I get any little flares that I'm hoping for. So, and everything comes into play here. The aperture that you use, the available light that's coming in, the quality of the light, the little water droplets, the highlights, because the aperture discs help to pick up the brighter light, the highlight, the little water droplets. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few images. Okay, so I did notice I had some really nice, sweet little flares coming from using the starburst aperture discs. So I'm very excited to get some of these images downloaded into my computer to see how those come out, and I'm excited to share those with you. So as I've mentioned before, all of Lensbaby's optics and lenses are manual focus. And manual focus can be tricky to learn if you're not familiar with using it. And I do have some tips for making manual focus easier. And my first tip is that if your camera has focus peaking, you can go ahead and Google your camera, and Google the brand of your camera and the model and focus peaking, and see if your camera has it, and find instructions to turn it on. And that really helps, because what focus peaking does is that when you're in manual focus, it highlights the areas of that you have in focus. So it is a focusing aid for using manual focus. And I do have it in my camera. I use it all the time. I love it. I highly recommend it. If your camera does not have focus peaking, you can find it easier to focus if you use live view. And I don't use that because I don't need it with my camera. But again, I encourage you to go ahead and Google that and see how to use live view. And both of those methods will make using manual focus much easier. So the next flower I'm going to work with is this. I do not remember the name of this flower, but I asked my husband to cut this one because I like how it has this top area here and then these little rings of flowers down here. So for this one, I'm thinking less about the mood I want to create and more about, I'm really interested to see if I'm focusing at the top part of the flower, what is going to happen with these lower parts of the flower. So especially, I still do have in the starburst aperture disc, and I'm interested to see if that affects or adds any texture into these interesting parts of this flower. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that. Let's see. Do this. Turn it down a little. There we go. That's exactly where I want it. I am starting to lose my light a little bit, so we'll see what we get here. Again, I'm going to start more open. Gradually start to close down. So it's very interesting. What I am seeing is that in these lower areas here, I am getting some really interesting textures. It gives it almost a cottony look here, where this area has some areas, a little bit of focus, but then some softness. And then down here, I'm actually getting some interesting texture that is coming through because of the starburst disc. So I like that. I think the images that I'm going to get from using the yellow flower and this flower are going to show different effects from just using that one aperture disc. So, as you know, in this soft focus optic swap macro kit by Lensbaby, there are two different optics that you can use as part of this kit. And now I'm going to talk to you about the Sweet 50 optic, which I have on my camera right now. So I have my camera set up with the Composer Pro 2 and the Sweet 50 optic, as well as the 3 macro filters that I have stacked. Usually when I use the macro filters, I do start with them stacked, and then as I am working with my subjects, I may take 1 or 2 off. I may change the arrangement of them, meaning sometimes I'll be using just +2 and +1, or sometimes +4 and +1, depending on how much or how little magnification I want to get from my subject. So one of the things that makes the Sweet 50 different from the Soft Focus 2 is that whereas the Soft Focus 2 gives you that very gentle, soft glow throughout your image, especially at the open apertures, with the sharper underlying details, the Sweet 50 gives you that nice sweet spot of focus, and then from the sides of the focus emanate out or radiate out the soft, gentle blur. Now, the more magnification that you use with your Sweet 50, that will affect how much of that blur you're getting as well. Since you're getting in so close to your subject, the combination of the aperture that you decide to use and the amount of magnification that you decide to use will affect how much blur. So I just recommend playing around with different apertures and using the macro filters and different combinations, and seeing what you like and how it works with all of your different subjects. And so I'm starting with using my third arm here, and I have this little tiny allium from my garden. This is a little mini one. I really love the huge ones, but they have all passed, so my little mini alliums are just starting to come up now. And let's see, I'm gonna move this so that I'm more in the light. And the reason why I chose this flower to start with is that I really love how the little tiny buds are coming out, almost like in a fireworks display. I love when I use the Sweet 50 to have my subject have a lot of depth to it, because the Sweet 50 just tends to work really well with those subjects, with using that sweet spot of focus and the nice soft blur. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think I have enough light here that I can work on this. Let's see. Here we go. And just as a reminder, when using the Optic swap system, we focus with the top ring of the composer, and we move our apertures by rotating the aperture ring on the Optic itself. And I like to, when I'm working with the Sweet 50, I tend to use f2.8, f4, and 5.6 most often. And let's see, what am I working at now? I am, let's see, f4. And I prefer with the Sweet 50 to often hold my composer straight, but I do have it set right now so that I can move it a little bit just to play around and see. It's good to experiment. Okay. So I think I've done a few with that flower, and I'm going to try a few other subjects. So I would like to experiment using a larger flower. Most of the flowers that I have been working with so far have been really tiny, but I want to practice using a larger flower that gives me some more options for different areas of blur and combinations of focus and blur that sometimes will show up more when the subject fills up most or all of the frame. So I have chosen to use this purple echinacea or coneflower plant flower, and I really love this one in particular because it has these really sweet upturned petals, and then there's a lot of detail in the center of the flower. So I thought this one would be fun to experiment with and see what I can get and share with you all. So I'm going to take a few images of this flower and be showing you how some of those come out. And I am starting to lose my light here a little bit, so I'm going to move us over just a bit. So I move my flower over so that it is diagonal from my very bright window right now, so that I can get some pretty light on the petals and a little bit into the center of the flower. I also decided to spritz this flower with some water because I thought that might be pretty. So I'm going to take a few images here. Okay, so we'll see how those come out, and I'll be sharing those with you. So I wanted to show you some of the other flowers that I've been working with this morning, and I'm not going to give you examples of me photographing all of them, but I did just want to show you the ones that I picked out in addition to the ones that I've already worked with. I am also working with this little catmint and a bud of the coneflower, another coneflower, and also a very early budding allium. And again, I chose each of these because of the depth that they have in them. And as I mentioned, I really do like to use the Sweet 50 with flowers that have a lot of depth. Okay, so to wrap things up, I'm going to give you my top 3 reasons why I really love this new soft focus optic swap macro kit from Lensbaby. So my top 3 reasons are: 1, I really love that they included these 2 optics that have very different creative effects. 2, I love how versatile this set is, that I can go out for a day with these 2 optics and my Composer Pro 2 and my little aperture discs, and I can go out and I can photograph street photography, portraits, landscapes, pretty much anything that you can do with a 50mm focal length. And then I can quickly transition to macro using my little macro filters. So I love that the 50mm focal length pairs so well with these macro filters and turns these optics into lenses that have macro capabilities. And third, which is also very important to me, is that I love how small this whole kit is. So I can head out for the day, put my camera around my neck, has the Composer Pro 2 with the Sweet 50 on it, and then I can take this little fanny pack, and in the pack I can put in my Soft Focus 2 optic in its little container, my little aperture discs, and my macro filters, and of course, last but not least, my lens cleaning cloth from Lensbaby. And I have a full day's worth of creative possibilities in a very small package. So thanks for hanging out with me. I hope that you found this helpful, and enjoy your day and shoot extraordinary.